Attack. From the weapons of war to tactical assault. Brute force to precision attack.
The battlefield is certainly changing.
If we were to level the battlefield, who's the smartest of them all?
If I have to decide what's more ingenious, nature or us, I'm always tempted to say nature.
We put nature and technology head to head. Who can defeat the enemy with the greatest efficiency and precision? Wild Tech explores Attack. Destruction is part of existence for both man and nature. Yet their means of attack are worlds apart. When animals attack, it is methodical, precise, and efficient. In the 20th century, mankind perfected weapons of mass destruction. By the end of World War II, we had the technology to destroy cities. By the 60s, we had the Cold War madness to destroy the world.
I guess I would like to say that we are out of the nuclear era. That the nuclear era was a 50-year diversion for the human race, and we reached a sort of pinnacle of our love for nuclear weapons and the number of nuclear weapons which existed in the arsenals around the world. And that kind of ended with the Cold War.
This is not to say nuclear threats don't exist, but future wars may hinge less on large-scale destruction and more on small-scale capabilities. Precision is the cutting-edge tool of modern warfare. In the wild, it's the difference between success and starvation. The precision strike on a single target. The Gulf War lessons taught military strategists and politicians that targeted objectives are much easier to explain to the public than wholesale, indiscriminate carpet bombing. New technology means the precision attack can even be applied to a single bullet. The archer fish is the sniper of the natural world. It stalks its prey from below, seeking to make a single-shot precision strike. The human sniper also gets a single chance to make a shot. After that, his position is given away. The fish has to process a mathematical formula for a watery bullet. It needs to calculate and correct for the refractive bending of light. By pressing its tongue against a groove on the roof of its mouth, the fish forces water out in a jet, delivering bullets at 66 yards a second. These underwater snipers achieve remarkable accuracy. Human snipers have other distractions, like wind and gravity, to deal with before they make a kill.
Most bullets right now are very, very sensitive to wind. They can be blown left or right, 15 to 20 feet. Gravity drop too gets them. Over a typical flight, you might drop 4, 5, 6 feet. So you've got to continually click up the precise amount for every shot that you've got. So this new type of bullet will be insensitive to gravity and windage and actually able to follow a moving target.
This sniper is stalking a tank. One bullet can take a tank out, but only if it hits in exactly the right spot, the gas tank. And to achieve that accuracy, the sniper deploys a smart bullet, a laser-guided projectile. But tanks can move, and the beauty of a smart bullet is it can track a moving target, mid-flight. The nose cone contains piezo-ceramic tendons that are shortened or lengthened in response to an electrical impulse delivered hundreds of times a second. At supersonic speed, very small angles generate huge amounts of lift.
They work very much like human muscle tissues. One will contract, the other will expand. And very much like in your forearm, your bicep will contract and your tricep will expand, and it'll rotate my elbow around my forearm. Same thing happens in the guided bullet. One piezoelectric element will expand, the other will contract and rotate the nose around a pivot to follow the target. The nose changes the total shape of the weapon just fractions of a degree. But at Mach 3, as you're traveling through the air, a slight movement left or right will put you off 10, 20 feet to be able to follow a target.
It's every sniper's dream. There are no near misses. The bullet scores a direct hit every time.
With this type of technology, it would change the nature of warfare in so many ways, because no longer would you need huge magazines of rounds to carry around. Just one or two would do the job.
Smart weapons are the answer to 21st century style warfare. Neat, concise strikes. The archer-fisher's sniper lesson being that a direct kill on an intended target is better than destroying an entire habitat.
War is a kind of a blunt instrument. It crushes rather than pierces. But what we would like to do is make a more piercing battlefield where you can selectively take out small little pockets that are your adversaries and try to leave the rest intact. You only want to use as much force as you need to accomplish the mission. So we're talking about successful missions versus total victory. I think the overpowering force that we've been developing over the years is going to be used more in a more limited fashion, has fewer opportunities for use. And we'll have to use these discrete weapons instead.
Nature's discrete weapons use exactly the same principles relied upon by military technology to complete a kill. The quiet attack. The owl is nature's stealth fighter. The leading edge of its first wing feather has a series of spikes which cause microturbulence. Instead of a loud, noisy single event, thousands of smaller events take place, causing less noise. By modifying only the leading feather, the flight of an owl can be as quiet as a mouse. The U.S. Army's latest attack helicopter uses these principles to create quiet choppers with modified rotor blades so they too can creep up on the enemy. The Comanche is the first stealth helicopter. Using ultra-sophisticated technology, the Comanche has nearly eliminated its radar, thermal, and sound signatures. Old technology choppers get their nickname from the distinctive sound their blades make as they cut into the vortex of the blade before it. But Comanche engineers gave this helicopter owl-like characteristics. The blades have swept wingtips, moving the sonic shock waves behind the leading edge. The chop-chop sound of the rotor disappears. The stealth helicopter also includes one of the most dramatic low-noise technologies, quiet mode. When the pilot selects quiet mode on the automatic flight control system, the Comanche's computers slow the main rotor RPM while increasing pitch angle to maintain lift. On quiet mode, the Comanche can creep up on the front line, stealthy in both name and nature.
Air power represents the future. It is not just precision, but it's also a different approach to warfare. It's a desire to eliminate the impediments of geography and time.
Another helicopter, the Apache, eliminates geography and time not through stealth technology, but its ability to fly below the line of ridges, trees, and buildings. Staying low, it remains undetected. When it comes up for a glance, the Apache's long-range, high-resolution sensors scrutinize the combat zone for enemy targets. The saltwater crocodile uses the same tactics in preparation for ambush. With its eyes mounted high above the waterline like miniature periscopes, the croc surveys its surroundings. As it submerges, its third eyelid helps it see clearly underwater. Like the Apache, it prioritizes its target and closes in. As the Apache arms its longbow fire control system, the croc prepares by inching forward. Neither can be seen nor heard until the moment of attack. The flight control capabilities of the Apache keep it hidden. The croc holds its breath so not a bubble appears on the surface. Then, in a heartbeat, comes the kill. Dead accuracy. First time, every time. Accuracy has become more critical than ever as the lines of the battlefield begin to blur. Wars are no longer fought in the trenches. There is no longer a defined front line. The theater of war has entered the world's metropolises, signaling a new era of tech combat, the non-lethal attack.
You got him! Hey, who's the team leader?
In the hills outside San Diego, California, lies Camp Pendleton, a Marine Corps base. In this urban training scenario, soldiers come to sharpen their skills as street fighters.
The battlefield is certainly changing. More and more conflicts are fought in an urban setting. There are non-combatants mixed with combatants. Sometimes that line is actually blurred.
You have a valid Valville ID. Keep it out in your right hand and proceed to your left.
Under these urban combat situations, you use a non-lethal force to buy yourself time and to keep people away at a distance so you can evaluate the situation.
When it comes to nature's best non-lethal attack, the military could learn from the bombardier beetle.
If I have to decide what's more ingenious, nature or us, I'm always tempted to say nature. There's so many organisms out there we haven't even looked at, let alone discovered, that I think it's good to maintain an open mind that nature is terrifically inventive.
The beetle uses a high-pressure chemical attack to warn off its enemy.
It's the original machine gun. The mechanism is really illustrative of what is the first machine gun. In addition to being irritating, they're at 100 degrees centigrade, so what you're really doing when you're a beetle is shooting out stuff that makes you itch like mad and burns.
When the beetle senses danger, it internally mixes enzymes contained in one body chamber with concentrated solutions of hydrogen peroxide and hydroquinone stored in a second chamber. Such a volatile mixture would normally explode spontaneously in a test tube. So why not in the beetle?
Having the chemicals compartmented, each in a separate chamber with a very good tight valve in between, protects him from that eventuality. He's built very well.
The mixture contains an inhibitor, which blocks the reaction until the liquid is squirted into the combustion chambers, at which time enzymes are added to catalyze the reaction, causing a violent explosion of corrosive gas.
So the tip of the abdomen, which has the gland openings at the very, very point, is really a revolvable turret. It's like the turret on a tank. It can turn and twirl in all directions, and as a result, the beetle can direct the gland openings forward, to the sides. He can even shoot onto its own back.
This makes the bombardier beetle nature's chemical weapon hotshot. Chemical weapons are becoming the attack strategy of choice for law enforcement agencies dealing with domestic violence, suicide prevention, prison riots, and hostage scenes.
Let the hostage go! Back up, man! I'm coming!
At the former West Virginia Penitentiary, non-lethal chemical weapons are demonstrated to show their effectiveness. In this case, a gun that shoots pepper balls.
It's a very simple system to operate. As you'll see here, I'm just going to dry fire it now. There's no recoil whatsoever. I can put it on my chin, pull the trigger. Absolutely easy to train somebody on how to use this system and use it to be accurate simply because there's no recoil.
The weapons are then put to the test using actors in a mock riot. The yelling and confusion simulates a real event. Tear gas is used to initially stun the inmates. Then the pepper gun and a pepper spray keeps the inmates at bay until they can be subdued. Derived from hot cayenne peppers, the weapon is not an irritant like tear gas, but an inflammatory agent. Contact with mucous membranes causes dilation of the capillaries of the eyes,
The pain!
resulting in temporary blindness and inflammation of the throat.
Oh, my eyes! Get away!
Without endangering the lives of either prisoners or officers, the riot has been tempered. Yet, technologies like pepper guns and others showcased at the mock prison riot walk a fine line. Although promoted as non-lethal, there's no guaranteed outcome when dealing with experimental weapons.
I bristle when the term non-lethal weapons is said. It's almost an oxymoron in itself, non-lethal weapon. I don't think you can say that non-lethal weapons are good or bad. It's kind of like saying weapons are good or bad. So a lethal weapon can be created from a non-lethal weapon by virtue of greater power.
Nature understands the power differential of non-lethal to lethal attacks. Australia has 21 of the top 24 most lethal snakes in the world. Yet many people bitten by these snakes suffer no consequences.
The snake decides whether he's going to inject venom or not. There are around about 3,000 bites a year from snakes in Australia, but only 300 of them need antivenin.
It's largely up to the snake whether you live or die. Using a chemical weapons arsenal that's millions of years old. There is one other chemical attack which may hold the solution for non-lethal weapons.
You should be smelling the odor right about now.
Oh, the stink bomb. Wild tick. At less than a month old, a juvenile skunk has at its disposal a weapon that is indicative of nature at its most innovative. Why use the hardware of tooth and claw when a stink spray will keep all but the most determined predators at bay? Technology is only just catching up with the notion that smell is an effective attack mechanism.
You may want to die, but as far as we know, you cannot die from a bad smell. You cannot even get really hurt. You can feel sick to your stomach, but once you move away from it, that's going to dissipate.
Psychologist Pamela Dalton is exploring scent to discover what is the most repulsive odor in the world. Then find out how people react to it.
One of the interesting things about the odors we're working with is that they really are operating at a purely psychological level. Unlike tear gas or irritants that have traditionally been used to move people away from an area, these odorants don't have any physical effects. They only make you want to get out of there.
For this reason, the military is looking at using Pamela's research findings to develop a stink bomb, which could be used to replace tear gas. Nature's stink bomb may look small and defenseless, but as this coyote is about to discover, they pack a punch. The sulfur compounds are so potent, they can be detected at 10 parts per billion. That's the equivalent of mixing a teaspoonful of skunk stench in an Olympic-sized swimming pool and still be overwhelmed by the vile aroma. The skunk fires its putrid spray from 2 anal glands, squirting several meters in any direction. Once sprayed, there's no escaping the stench. The sulfurous compounds become volatile when they come in contact with water, even weeks after the dosing. So to be sprayed by a skunk is a long-term punishment. But how does Pamela Dalton go about designing a stink bomb?
In order to study what is the worst odor in the world, we actually started with a very long list of possible candidates. We had to bring the real stuff here in the lab and let it rot, let it decompose, or ferment it, or burn it. In the case of hair, we burned buckets and buckets of hair. And in all of those cases, we were trying to find out what was the chemical or chemicals that were responsible for generating the classic odor that was associated with that. Once we had that, then we could throw away the natural source and go with a synthetic chemical, which is obviously a lot neater, a lot cleaner, and made everyone around here quite a bit happier. We put people in our chamber and put a hood over their heads so that we could deliver the odor to the nose and not stink up the entire chamber. By doing that, we could control exactly the concentration we were giving them. Okay, Rick, you should be smelling the odor right about now.
Oh.
Some of the compounds that we used in the trial were ones that were characteristic of either human waste products or rotting flesh. People immediately recognized what these odors represented and thought they were just horrible. I mean, they drew away from them almost instinctively, as if they believed that just smelling this could be harmful to them. He certainly seems to think it's bad because he's breathing very shallowly. We could measure their heart rate and their breathing rate, because if there's one thing that will be affected when you smell a bad odor, it's your breathing. We also look at things like eye blink response. And what we're really interested in is trying to understand if this odor is having an aversive reaction because it is actually producing a physical change, or whether it's all happening in the person's mind. Definitely is having a very strong response. I'm sure he's ready for a break. We've seen some people get very close to vomiting, where they actually had to swallow a great deal and rip the hood off their head and then say, okay, I really don't think I can continue.
Are we nearly done with this?
Rick, there's about 15 seconds left to the odor exposure, and then it will be over.
Despite this stomach-turning cocktail of scents, there's no permanent damage to the test subjects.
So, was it worse than you expected?
That was quite intense. I didn't expect it to be that strong.
So, for the best attack, what ingredients would make the ultimate stink bomb?
I would probably start with the smell of human waste, because no one I have ever met likes that smell.
Am I going to be able to get this smell off my clothes?
Then I would add some rotting fish to that, and maybe a little dead squirrel. And on top of it, I would put an odor that that person actually liked a lot, because that would set up an approach avoidance conflict that they couldn't possibly resist.
When it comes to the stinkiest weapons, technology is likely to outwit nature.
Yeah, I think it's working. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
The urban war, controlling but not killing hostile crowds. The cutting-edge tools of non-lethal weaponry have turned science fiction into science fact.
Wild Tech.
In the desert of New Mexico is a weapon you can't see and you can't hear. It travels at the speed of light, and its objective is pain. This weapon is in its final phase testing on human targets.
Active denial is a millimeter wave transmitter. It emits a beam that's very collimated, very discrete, and goes a long distance, impacts on a target, in this case the target being people.
Active denial, or the pain beam as it's colloquially known, is a deterrent weapon which will stop people in their tracks.
Just imagine a wall of flame. You think it's a wall of flame. You don't see it, you don't hear it. It feels like a wall of flame coming around you. Your brain will tell you to react, no matter how hard you're trying to stay. Your brain thinks there's a wall of flame there. And I jumped out of the way every time.
Its exact operation is still classified. Controlled by a simple joystick and beamed by antennae, the pain beam can be pulsed, swelled, or swept. It can strike well beyond 800 yards.
It penetrates their clothing, impacts on their skin. It heats that very, very outer layer to intolerable pain levels and causes a reaction. And it does this well before causing permanent damage.
Penetrating the surface layer of skin, millimeter wave energy rapidly heats the epidermis without burning or causing damage to internal organs.
It is heating your water molecules and causing them to vibrate, which creates heat. Your nerves sense the heat. Your brain says something is getting extremely hot and basically takes over. Pain's a basic defense mechanism. You're going to react.
The antennae can be mounted on all military hardware. The active denial system may be in deployment as soon as 2008.
The peacekeeping, the situations where we're acting as the police, the situations where we're simply trying to hand out food. Those type of situations need longer range, non-lethal weapons.
The pain beam will keep crowds at bay. But is it safe?
If you bypassed all the safety that's built into the system, if you've overridden the system controls and the person was trapped in the beam, you would start to cause some amount of damage, but it would step from sunburn to the various phases. But that's what training and doctrine and hardware controls are all about.
Heat is one long-distance deterrent for urban war. Sound may prove to be another. The long-range acoustical device uses a focused beam of sound as a deterrent. Or, as inventor Woody Norris explains, it's the equivalent to firing sonic bullets.
There's an extremely powerful lobe that is pinpointed in the front that's only a few degrees wide. So it gives you the ability to squirt it out like a high-intensity hose, which they often use for crowd control. We shoot sound at them instead of water or rubber bullets.
Being able to focus sound in a narrow beam enables the device to deliver piercing noise to a specific target. Nature also uses sound as a weapon. None better than the killer whale. When the whales hunt the herring of the North Sea, they herd schools of 25 tons of the fish to the surface. Throughout the hunt, the whales vocalize to one another, coordinating their actions as a group. Once in the shallows, the killers steer the herring into denser, tighter balls by flashing their white bellies and slapping their tail flukes on the surface, creating a shock wave that stuns the fish. With a final acoustic assault, the whales use a big bang, a high-amplitude sonic impulse lasting only hundredths of a millisecond. The comatose fish are now easy pickings for the pod of whales. The sonic bullets of Norris's device are designed to make life uncomfortable, not necessarily stun.
The threshold for humans where sound becomes painful is right at 120 decibels. This gadget can deliver that at 500 or 800 yards. If you are up close, it's capable of putting out over 160 decibels. It's about 50 times the threshold of pain. But it's not lethal. One of the sounds that we've been given that has been deemed not classified sounds to me like the sound of a baby crying backwards, pitch elevated, with some sweep tones moving in and out. And it is, even at very modest levels, quite excruciating.
This is a restricted security area. Please stop, turn around, and leave.
The mechanism of hearing in humans is based on a couple of little bones. By vibrating your skull, they can cause vertigo. You're unable to maintain your upright position. If you continue to direct it at them after they have fallen down, they will then have nausea and vomiting and the whole thing that accompanies motion sickness.
Because the beam vibrates the skull, earplugs or noise-canceling headphones are useless.
You do not ignore pain, especially in your ears. It's a very delicate little eardrum in there. It takes a few seconds even for the most hardened terrorist, which is a great effect. The long-term effects are pretty much the same that you would get from attending a rock concert. You may have some ringing in your ears for a day or two, but that's certainly better than being dead or having a bullet wound that you're trying to recover from over the next several months.
Alternative weapons may replace the brute force of past military might, but the tactics of war remain the same: to render a society inoperable.
Wild tech.
Overtaking territory, overpowering systems, overthrowing governments, overwhelming destruction. Yet, imagine if we could wage war without devastation, where a city could come under attack, but no buildings would be destroyed or people harmed. The first strategy in this line of offense may be information warfare. Logic bombs and computer viruses used to disrupt civilian and military operations. Then there's the potential for psychological operations to infiltrate and manipulate the enemy. For nature, information warfare is cunningly employed by the Thomasid spider. smell is the sentinel of the weaver ant colony. It's the information pass card that gets you into the nest. Guards will set upon invaders if they don't have the correct chemical key. So what chance does the Thomasid spider have? It looks somewhat like a weaver ant, but incredibly, it smells like one too. It has evolved the ability to mimic the ant's scent so that it can access all areas without detection. Cracking the chemical code means the spider can infiltrate the system and pick off a juicy meal at leisure. The spider's infiltration is complete. While nature has been occupied with evolution, technology has been busy with revolution. Not just cracking codes, but also replacing signals with new messages. The military calls it Commando Solo, broadcast studio in the sky. It's part of the U.S. military's psychological operations, or PSYOPs, and it's designed to beam propaganda messages into the heart of enemy territory. A trailing wire 600 feet long emits AM frequency, while oversized antennae broadcast from under each wing, allowing the airborne attackers to hack into both local television and radio stations. They infiltrate enemy, spreading messages to confuse or reassure a hostile nation. Like the Thomasid spider, PSYOPs manipulates the communication keys of the enemy. The next generation warfare will not only manipulate, it will cripple a society, but leave infrastructure intact, paralyzing from within.
Our society is a collection of systems. Our electrical power systems, our water systems, our transportation and communication systems. They're systems, and they can be disabled by hitting nodes within those systems.
In nature, the closest parallel for a weapon which can take out a system but leave infrastructure is the hawk wasp. Spying a tarantula, the female wasp's maternal instincts take over. Despite the size difference, she knows how to exploit the spider's weakness. She attacks its soft underbelly, paralyzing the creature with her venomous sting. She will lay her eggs inside the still-living tarantula. On hatching, the larvae wasps eat the living flesh of the spider from the inside out. They have infiltrated a complete living system and now use it for their own advantage. The ultimate invasion of enemy territory. Can humankind produce such a weapon? A weapon capable of rendering a society inoperative, but leaving infrastructure untouched. Consider the electromagnetic pulse, born of the 1950s nuclear tests. 2 billion watts of energy, sending shock waves of electrons, powerful enough to blow streetlights in Hawaii and radio communications in Australia. Scientists knew then that electromagnetic energy alone could bring a society to a standstill.
On the one hand, you can see a military future in which precision can be so great that civilians are not going to be killed by rubble. They're not going to be killed by shrapnel. They're not going to be killed by the firestorms of wars of old. Yet they might die because they are deprived of the basic utilities and amenities of modern life.
Radar. Looking good.
The U.S. military calls it an E-bomb. Low-frequency E-bombs deliver no more energy than a lightning strike. But high-frequency E-bombs flood the target with intense microwave illumination, causing electrical standing waves in power grids and telephone wiring. The result? Burnt-out electronic circuits, erased computer chips and hard drives. No power, no communications. The enemy is left blind, deaf, and incapable of retaliation. By targeting systems instead of human lives, the result may be a swift and bloodless victory. Our own dependence on modern technology may prove to be our Achilles heel. New York's 2003 blackout showed the debilitating effect of destroying a power system. It doesn't require a nuclear missile. All that's needed is a small, strategically placed bomb to disperse electrons. It's predicted by 2015, E-bombs strong enough to take out computer mainframes or a power substation could be carried in a briefcase.
Once you open that Pandora's box and you start introducing these as acceptable weapons in the arsenals of the militaries around the world, let's just think about what the implications would be. We won't be the only people with high-power microwave weapons. Terrorists will be with high-power microwave weapons. Drug lords will be with high-power microwave weapons. Opposing forces that may not be so mindful of the law of war might be with high-power microwave weapons. And so the question, in a sort of ethical, legal sense, is what are the implications going to be for us?
This is the great paradox of war. The empire will strike back with the very arsenal designed to take them out. It's the price of evolution. For nature, 4 billion years of keeping up with the enemy has resulted in a never-ending arms race, a history of measure and countermeasure. From the precision strikes to the stealth attacks, from chemical manipulation to the information attack, nature has provided its creatures, great and small, with impressive arsenals. Ingenuity has provided man with similar arrays. A never-ending arms race fueled by technology's ability to deliver the attack.